Welcome, welcome. This is episode 13 of the Mendable podcast channel. And for people who are superstitious, they may say that the number 13 is unlucky, but I actually think it represents great good fortune because today I get to sit here and have a conversation with a very dear friend of Mendable, Ella Matheson, who's been with Mendable for quite a long time, probably about the same amount of time as me. And Ella is many things. She is a peace ambassador. I've heard her described as a compassion consultant. She's an author. She's an advocate of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and of course a mental health advocate as well, which is what brings us here. So, Ella, great to have you here and sit down and have the opportunity to chat on camera.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, David. And yeah, I think I agree. 13 is lucky 13 and quite auspicious in some circles. So yeah, really good to be here.
And also you had to make the huge trek from West London to Southwest London.
I know, going south.
Crossing the river, coming over to the other side. But great that we're able to do that. In actual fact, Ella and I discovered earlier this year that we actually only live a few stops away from each other on the London Underground.
Yeah,
so
we're very close.
Makes it very easy to meet up.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, a few things I'd like to ask you. I mean, I gave a high level of who you are, but I'd love you to tell your story about yourself. And when I look through, say, your social media, your Clubhouse channels, your profiles on anywhere, the theme that seems to recur all the time is helping people feel good about themselves. You seem to be one of these people that just wants to be able to help other people. Is that something that you've done all your life, or is it something that happened a little bit more recently?
I think there is a theme. There's been more activity recently, shall we say, but it's been a feature and a background, if you like. The backdrop to my life growing up was very much the civil rights movement in America. My dad, he was a huge fan of Muhammad Ali, previously Cassius Clay, and there are all these features, if you like, that influenced who I was, and perhaps not completely aware, but certainly looking back over time, I started to see some of the dots lining up, if you like, and I think certainly, especially if we look at the times that we're in now, it feels very much like history repeats itself. And so for me, it's having that awareness, if you like, and really focusing on, well, what am I here to do in this lifetime? What's my role? What can I contribute to make the world a better place? Or one of the phrases I've borrowed from Charles Eisenstein is, what can I do to really focus on contributing to a more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. And so there's, I think, when I'm thinking about the trajectory, if you like, it hasn't been so much that I've chosen that path, it has somehow chose me in many, many ways, because I think I was sort of looking, searching for communities where I could receive that support, guidance, information, and it was fairly limited growing up, and so I've had to create a sort of spaces where I could be more myself, and then wanting to have that space also for other people to ensure that they can be, do and have the lives that they want to have as well.
So, Ella, that's a great testament to you and to who you are, because so many people in the world are dissatisfied with politics, social problems, disorganization, whatever, and so many people just complain sideways, complain to other people, but people who can't really do anything about it. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you just complain to each other about how terrible things are, it'll make you feel worse. But there has to be a way out. And even if you don't agree with something, even if you're not enjoying where you are and you feel it's not right, you should be looking for a way out. So is that the type of thing that really is your method?
Yeah, I concur. I think for me, it's really been quite pragmatic. Being born in the body that I've been born in the space and time that I live in, it's navigating and walking very much a physical and a spiritual path. I grew up with my mother and her sisters having conversations about dreams they'd had, and the kind of inferences from that and the messages, the meanings behind that. And then on another side, we're physical beings, so you make sense of the world as well through that physicality. And so, yeah, I mean, I have my moments. There are times when my hand goes up in the air and I despair at times. And I think one of the key things for me, and perhaps what really pushed me into what I do now, is when my father passed away, because then I had to seek, I had to find and look for a way of living a new type of life, if you like. And I think just speaking to other people, finding out what was going on for them. And in fact, I spoke a lot to my vicar, so much so that I think my mother thought she might have vicar as a son-in-law. But no, that obviously didn't happen.
So one of the words that I see coming up, I mentioned the theme about helping other people, but one of the words I keep on seeing is peace, associated with Ella. And I know you're the founder of an organization called Peace in the City. Would you tell us a little bit about that and the mission there and the work you've done and what that represents?
Yeah, sure. With Peace in the City, that came about, oh gosh, it's taken me back a little bit now. I think it was just after 2012, and there are all these philosophies about the Mayan calendar, the 26,000 year cycle. And I'd started to run public workshops around spirituality, spiritual development, intuition, inviting various guests and what have you. And one thing that I thought I could contribute even more to was to teach inner peace. And for me, meditation had been a huge feature in my life. I think there'd been a Time magazine article around that time as well. And in preparation for that, I was doing more meditations, doing more workshops, etc. And I think it was around 2014, something like that, 2014, 2015. And there was a police shooting in America. I think it was, I don't want to say the wrong name, but it was on a trajectory of events taking place at that time. And there were lots of protests and people were walking around with one of the Egyptian symbols, hands up, don't shoot. And it suddenly, I don't know, it just spoke to me when I saw that gesture, and I thought, I've seen that before. This has happened before. And I wonder if it is a call to something deeper within. I wonder if it is a call to a more expanded self, spiritual self, if you like. And something in my intuition encouraged me to set up Peace in the City, which is when I started taking the idea of inner peace out into the world and teaching meditation and bringing people much more together on that basis. So the idea with Peace in the City was about cultivating personal peace and taking that out into the world. So as we radiate our own inner joy and love and happiness, we have a vibrational frequency that then expands out and meters out to other people. And so Peace in the City was born out of that in many ways. And I think also interestingly, I'd taken a Peace Ambassadors course with Dr. James O'Dea. He was the Washington director for Amnesty International before writing and becoming an author and teaching and supporting other change makers. And so there was this challenge to, well, what's your big, bold vision? And I suppose that was mine, that we could have world peace, that peace is possible. And I felt very much that it starts with the self, with the inner challenges, if you like. Some people call them traumas, big T, small t, and recognising that there's usually something that perhaps we haven't recognised as being a challenge in our lives. And for me, I did recognise on a number of levels that I was very much sensitive to what was happening in the world, but very much sensitive to what was happening with people close to me, and I wanted to feel that there was justice, that there was some balance, and sort of just have this equilibrium of love and beauty and all that's good, and why not? And recognising that there's also the duality, isn't there, of the opposite of all of that. And so essentially, when I put out the intention that I wanted to create more peace, then the opposite was true. I started to meet people who would challenge that, who didn't quite understand. I was part of a networking organisation, and I think the Sustainable Development Goals had been launched, and so I was speaking on that on many, many levels, but ultimately Goal 16 is what I focused on, but of course there's also initiatives around women's equality, equity included in that. And it was difficult for me to separate them all out, to be clear, because I think there's so much impact, and we're seeing that now as well, particularly with Indigenous people who have been custodians of the earth, sometimes being excluded from conversations where we could have the greatest impact. So I did find that difficult to separate it all out, and so Peace in the City was that call to bring, the clarion call to bring some of these ideas together, but very much starting with personal peace and then taking that into the world to international peace as well.
Yeah. Now, to put some context around this, we're doing this recording here in November of 2024, and there's conflict in the world. There's conflict in the Middle East, there's conflict in Eastern Europe, there's conflict in other parts of the world. How can you best advise people to find inner peace and reconcile with the conflict and the aggression that's going on elsewhere in the world? Because it does affect people, even if you're not personally in those places. It affects everyone.
Yes, it does. And I wouldn't dare to think that I have all the answers. However, I think one of the things I think is really important is to have that groundedness, to come back to self, because without coming back to the sort of, what I would say, the truth of who we are. And for me, that means the love that connects us all as human beings. And in Southern Africa, Archbishop Desmond Tutu made this phrase very popular, Ubuntu, that my humanity is inextricably linked with yours. So as we see each other as the same, as we see each other as another human being, if you like, having a spiritual experience on this planet, then that opens up the way. And you're right, there is a lot of conflict. There is disharmony, and the converse is true, that there is love, there is beauty, and it's recognising where we can tap into that and find the resources that we need ourselves, if you like, armour up, power up in many ways, And then having that strength to then go out and make the difference that we can make. This might be a little bit controversial, but I think one of the things that's important is to kind of step into somebody else's moccasins. And I think what could be more helpful is if we could listen more, because there has been this sort of either you're left or either you're right. And I think any extreme is not helpful for anyone in the world, and particularly when it comes to conflicts.
What you describe is really the number one rule of diplomacy is, even if you disagree with somebody on the other side, if you understand why they think that way, it's a good step towards resolving conflict. And,
Exactly.
and this could be conflict between family members, it could be conflict between countries or whatever. And the other comment I'll make is that one of the things, and we're not political at all and we don't want to get political, but I firmly believe the most successful government governs from the center. Those far extreme ideologies, they don't work. If you can govern from the center, if you can have a common ground, you're going to be more successful. And I think I know the answer to the next question, but have you ever thought of getting into politics?
Oh my gosh, I did many years ago, and I realised that wasn't my gift in the world. My gift is to offer, in my experience, and to share my journey with other people so that they can see that there is beauty after challenges. There is love, and I think that's one of the things that really brings the communities that I've created together. The fact that we focus on love of who we are as human beings, and one of the ways I like to do that is to bring as many people along as I possibly can. So I've changed the way that I spell human, which is HUEMXN. And I know in this current climate it's going to be, oh, really? Okay, fine. But I think that is important as well, that people do feel listened to and heard. And that may well be because I've had to really push for that at times where I felt I'm not being listened to, that no one's going to be there for me. And so I want to have that space where people feel they can be heard and listened to. And I think that's why I feel so passionate about Mendable as well, because it's a really important feature of our lives. Although it's twice a week, it still happens because we're then connected energetically at other times as well.
And of course, it's gone way beyond that, just twice a week for a couple of hours, because there are many people that get together, as we are doing here, meet each other, talk to each other, just have phone calls between each other, and have found that support and that love and that warmth from another person, and having somebody that you can just call and say, look, I'm having a bad day. And sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
Exactly.
And that's all it really takes, is somebody to just listen, somebody you can just have a vent, talk about what it is that's bothering you. One of the things I'm a firm believer is that once you've identified what's upsetting you, it's much easier to recover from it.
Yes.
The worst thing is you're just not feeling right and you don't know why. And it could be that little thing in the corner there that you've kind of dismissed out of your mind. When you realize what it is, that moment of, oh, okay, now I know what it is. Maybe I can do something about it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And this is so much of what Mendable is about. So how did you first connect with Mendable? How did you find Mendable?
Oh gosh, let me think. How did I find Mendable? Well, I think it was Raj who invited me. I mean, I spoke a little bit about Peace in the City before, and one of the things that I'd created was some artwork to go along with that, and merchandise and things under the banner of Peace Lovers. And when Clubhouse opened up, I started a community called Peace Lovers, bringing together people who I was explaining before, who are wanting to find that inner peace, power up, and then take their ideas out into the world. So it was that community, and also I think with sustainability. So sustainability, I was a moderator in some of these rooms, and Raj would come in, introduce himself and say what he was doing, and he kept on pinging me into this Mendable room, and I was like, oh, I'm focused on this, I'm doing that and the other, and I really stopped and took a look at, why was he inviting me all the time, and then I went and then never stopped going.
Yeah.
Because it is very, very, very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very powerful indeed. And it was so, it's just so aligned with everything that I was doing anyway at the time, and, everything that I've been working on for many, many years before walking into that room. So it was, shall we say, divine inspiration that brought us together at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So mental health and mental well-being is very much a part of all of your beliefs, I'm sure. Mm. What are the things that you think we need to do to promote mental health and well-being? If there's a few things that you think needed to be done, the world should be doing, society, we as individuals, what do you think are the important things?
Well, I think one of the important things is what you're doing now. This initiative is speaking to people and really showing up, because this is mental health. This is what mental health looks like. It's having these conversations, really, and that reduces the stigma, the bias of what people may have bias, thinking about what mental health might be like and what mental health might look like. And I think we've seen that more with celebrities coming out and speaking about the challenges that they've had. And I think certainly for me, discovering meditation, discovering spirituality after my father passed away really made a huge difference in my life. And I think this is one of the things when we are speaking with each other, that there is an energetic frequency and energy that's always going to be there. I remember this conversation that we've had for a long time, not because I'll watch the video, but because of what we've created between each other. And I think this is something that is so important. It's having the conversation. It's the feeling that we have. That quote by Maya Angelou: people always remember the way you make them feel. And so for me, that's what I try to do. I try to have that positive impact. I'm not saying that always happens, because people receive you in whatever sort of perception they might have, but that is definitely the intention. And so that is my intention, to try and leave the world a more beautiful place than the one I met it in.
Now, do you feel that there is more love and harmony in the world than there is conflict and aggression?
Yes, I do.
I do too.
I do. Otherwise, let's just pack up and leave now. I believe that for sure, 100%. And I don't know, maybe I just live in a bubble of love and light, and people who are focused on their personal empowerment, development, their personal growth. And for a lot of the time that is the case, but certainly people that come to me are often not from that particular perspective and are facing really tough challenges. And I think that's what we can do. We can hold the space and know that there is an expanded awareness. There is more to what we might see in the media. However, I think it's really important that we do focus on what is good.
Yeah.
what can we be grateful for? And for me, appreciation says a lot. And there are some times in my life I haven't always been appreciative, but as soon as I am, it starts a cycle of more appreciation, more people coming into your life to appreciate you, and you can appreciate them. And I think I've done that at times where I felt a little bit stuck through contribution, through giving back.
Well, sadly, peace, love, harmony, gratitude, contribution doesn't sell news.
No.
I wish it did, but it doesn't.
No,
I think we just have to continually remind ourselves that it's there, and that it can emerge, and it can provide us with a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Ella, have you ever had conventional 9-to-5 employment?
Yes, I mean, that's how I suppose I started this. As I said, I didn't necessarily choose this life, but it chose me. One of my first jobs, I ended up in local government, and one of the things that was happening at the time was the emergence of women's equality, and I was invited to become an administrator and help set up this new department. And so that's one of the things that I did, and later on became a women's policy officer within that department as well. And it was through that process, if you like, maybe osmosis, I don't know, that it kind of sat particularly well with me, recognising, of course, the role of women in society and where women were valued in the past, perhaps in matriarchal societies. That was interesting to discover. But more interestingly was recognising the matriarchs in my own family.
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that we should all do what we're good at.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not supposed to do something, don't do it. And we should all set ourselves up for success. If you try doing something you're not good at, you probably won't be successful. If you do something because your parents want you to do it, you're probably not going to be successful. But we should all have the freedom to find our way and find what we're good at and what we want to do. And there's nothing wrong with being in later life and still discovering that. You don't have, some people do have this vision at 5 years old that I want to be a surgeon.
Yeah.
And great. If that's you have that vision and you want to do it and you have the passion for it and you go ahead and do it, I think that's wonderful. But I consider I'm still learning what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah, me too. I feel like I'm always learning. I've had a crisis of faith. I kind of didn't go to church for many, many years. Christianity was the religion of my childhood. And as I mentioned before, going to my local vicar, asking lots and lots of questions, not necessarily getting the answers that helped me, I started seeking and learning about other religions, other cultures, other people. And I don't think that's ever likely to stop. There's so much to discover about people in the world and really what connects us, what brings us together. Not so much what the divisions are, but celebrating the differences, if you like, recognising what's valuable, what we can learn from each other that does make it a better place for everyone to be part of.
Absolutely. And I would say you've inspired a lot of people in your life, but where do you go for inspiration?
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. I think it's the inspiration comes from that deeper spiritual connection, because there are times when not everyone can be available for you. There has to be a time when it's a reckoning, if you like. And I've been through enough dark nights of the soul to know that at some point it has to come from the inner knowledge, from the power that is within. And it's not to negate or devalue community. Community is essential, because I know I wouldn't be here without community, without beautiful souls like yourself. It's having that, what do you call it? It's like having a committee, if you like, and looking at all areas of your life. And I think that's one of the things that I've had to do. I've had to look at all areas of my life and look at what I need to pull in that is really going to sustain me when I need that. And so yes, of course I can, there's people that I can message and chat to and be part of communities. However, when it's really, really important, there has to be that groundedness within as well.
Ella, thank you again so much for coming over and taking the time to chat and share your thoughts, your wonderful words of wisdom. I'm sure they'll be very beneficial to a lot of people. And we look forward to lots more conversations like this. And please remember, everybody, the Mendable Room is Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. East Coast in North America, noon on the West Coast. And please come and join us. And Ella, I wish you peace and harmony in your life.
Thank you so much, David. A real honour and privilege to spend this time with you. And I'm sure Mendable will be going from strength to strength.